On a very hot afternoon in Barcelona, pre-qualifying is about to get underway for this, the final round of Fanatec GT World Challenge powered by AWS Endurance Cup. The European Championship coming towards its close. We have got one more event after this. It's the last sprint round, so overall titles will be decided, but the Endurance Championships will be wrapped up this weekend with overall gold, silver, bronze and Pro-Am all on the line. There's a lot to look forward to when we go qualifying tomorrow. 90 minutes though are ahead of us for pre-qualifying. Were we to have any dramas tomorrow morning and the grid could not be set, this would be it. But effectively for the teams, it gives them another opportunity to try and dial in the cars. It was a lively start to the day. A number of people in strife, running wide over the gravel, over the curbs, having spins, a couple of red flags. Let's see how this one pans out. David Addison, John Watson, trackside. It was a busy morning, John, and it's got even hotter, and the pressure is on drivers this weekend. Titles on the line.
All that, but you say the temperature's got warmer. Well, it's gone up since this morning at 9 a.m. when cars went out on track for that free practice session. The ambient is up 20 degrees. It's now 39.6 on track, 29.4 ambient. Going to make a massive amount of difference to the team compared to what just 2 or so hours ago. Now, what are they going to do this afternoon? Well, maybe what they'll focus on is what they're going to be contending with 24 hours down the road, because the race will be getting underway at 3 p.m. here on Sunday afternoon. Temperatures are going to be probably parallel to where we are now. Might even be hotter, David. They're talking about over 30 Celsius Sunday. So it's about preparation, time management. What are we going to do? And just get all your drivers cycled through, give them a chance to get behind the wheel on tyres that are not brand new, set for qualifying, whatever. It's a learning session, and everybody is here to try and learn as much as they can in the 1.5 hours.
Now, one thing we did discover this morning was just how much gravel is being brought onto the road and how much of a factor that is. It was certainly narrowing the available width of the road, it was narrowing the racing line, and it was at one point necessary to have a bit of a clear-up operation by the race officials. The teams hopefully will be taking all that on board, because come the race, the last thing they need is gravel on the road and even punctured tyres.
David, you're talking. Nobody's going to listen to what you've just said.
This is very true.
Look, up at turn 9 on the exit where people were dropping a wheel off onto the gravel, they have dug out a gully. A badger could get through it, it's that deep.
Well, over the course of the next 90 minutes, the teams will try to work on setup. They will, of course, cycle through practice pit stops. They'll put drivers in that perhaps don't have as much Barcelona track experience as others. It's all about being, if you like, match fit for tomorrow. Qualifying will take place tomorrow morning, so they've kind of done that simulation of running at the start of the day. Now, of course, they're heading towards race time, race temperatures for tomorrow.
Well, David, there is the scene of the event. I wouldn't say the crime. It's been filled back in, and understandably, the circuit management wanted to make sure that that exit was as safe as possible. But I've no doubt by the time we conclude this pre-qualifying session that that hole will reappear, because everybody's pushing to the extreme limit, and especially when you're on a set of tyres that is, you know, beyond its natural quickest cycle, they're going to be running wide pretty much every corner, and we have seen in previous events, by the time the 3-hour race is over, the racetrack is in effect a single track line all the way around.
Well, the track has been swept. It's been made to look like it should. And so let's see how we do for lap times in this next session. There is Timo Boguslavski. Comes here as the championship leader, but the pressure is on.
Indeed, and Timo Boguslavski has done a good job overall, bearing in mind he has competed in both sprint and endurance, and you have pointed out, David, I think on a number of occasions, by only doing one of the two disciplines. Principally, it used to be just doing the sprint. He is now getting a lot more seat time, and the consequence of that is your confidence level builds, so that when you get into the car, you know you're stepping into something you're familiar with, you know what you're capable of, and you know that you can continue to develop and learn and improve.
Now, the opposition will come from that BMW, the Rover Racing entry. That is the Marco Wittmann, Philip Eng and Nick Yellerly car. This session is 90 minutes in duration. The green flag is waved, so we are in business. Cars making their way out on track now then, with Maxi Kurtz and Jules Gounon looking on from the pit wall, and a 54-strong entry. One red flag this morning because Nicky Leutwiler put a car in the gravel and it wasn't damaged, and he was able to get back out later on in that session. But it wasn't just about gravel being brought on the road, because, as ever, one of the factors this morning was the dreaded track limits and lots of people being given black flags and penalties for them.
Yes, and particularly up at turn 13, which is a revised corner in conjunction with turn 14. So many drivers were brought to book for their indiscretions. They weren't doing it to gain an advantage. It's just because the corner profile has changed. It's a much quicker corner. That is natural. The car will run out to the very edge. And sometimes, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. But, you know, if you do it too frequently, you will be penalised. Just to go back to Rover Racing, that car, the 98 car, was 19th this morning.
So looking down from the drone, and Antonia Rankin is down in the pit lane, joining our World Challenge team this weekend. And she's found Sky Tempesta Racing's Chris Froggatt.
Chris, you're leading the bronze class. What are you hoping to learn from pre-quali today?
Well, now we're looking at race pace a bit, really, focusing on how the car is going to feel in this condition. It's similar to when the race will be starting. So 20 degrees hotter than this morning with track temperature. So for us, it's really important to understand we have a good race car.
Absolutely. Track temp is so high right now. We've got all of the midday sun. Do you think that's going to complicate your race?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is going to be super crucial to figure out the car for us. Complicate the race. I think super high degradation in this circuit, but I think managing tyres will be really important. Everyone has the same problem, so we just have to get on top of it.
Of course, great. Thank you so much. Best of luck this weekend.
So 93 is Eddie Cheever at the moment, behind the wheel of the Sky Tempesta McLaren. And pretty much everybody, I think, has headed out onto the circuit. This is the last opportunity before qualifying to get the cars absolutely dialed in as you want. So everybody trying to use as much of the time as possible, apart from 88, which has yet to get suited and booted, and a driver yet to plug into that, I think.
And I think what the team is doing is just selecting a set of tyres that they want to run on, and the specific challenges that they may want to overcome when the car goes out on track is, well, that's whatever they've got. They ended up, I think, where were they ending up? In third place this morning. That was a very good lap as Jules Gunnar to get that car up to third place.
Sorry to interrupt you, but Sheldon van der Linde has already lost a lap time for track limit abuses, and so also has Romain Leroux. So straight away, running wide or exceeding the limit of the track in turn 13, costing people lap times.
Yeah, it's just coming down into, is this 13 or 14? That tight shot, I think that's into 14, that's the final corner. And again, we saw a lot of drivers running very wide and kicking up gravel as they just skated with the outside of the circuit. Mr. Farfus goes quickest overall, 143.1. Contrast that with what we saw this morning from Dries van Thor, the 32 BMW. He did a 139 what was it, 0.888. So basically 3 and a bit seconds, sorry, yes, 3 and a bit seconds slower than what we saw the very best. But that was probably done, I believe, on a fresh set of Pirelli rubber.
Riding with Farfus, you can see how busy it is up the road as there, moving through the traffic, number 98, BMW Nick Yellerlich, going ahead of the championship rival car, which Raffaele Marcello has taken out on the track. Let's just eavesdrop with Acodis ASP, the Mercedes team.
So you go for 3 flying laps, fresh tyres, low fuel, fresh tyre, low fuel.
So 3 flying laps and then fresh tyres for Marcello. Every team with its own run plan, of course.
Yes, and each team, I mean, within the team, each driver may have a different plan to all the others, but at the end of the day, this is more a session about dialing your car in for consistency on a lap over a 1 hour stint. And in fact, let's ride on board with Raffaele Marcello coming through turn 14 and lines it up. He's going to launch it off turn. Didn't go into it on a hot lap. He wanted to build the speed through to drive the car off turn 14 to get the maximum drive and the minimum amount of side slip, which is what he's achieved. But he's got traffic ahead of him, 2 cars going into turns 1 and 2, and if he's got the pace he's hoping for, he'll probably catch them pretty much before the conclusion of what will be his first probably timed lap in this 1.5 hour session. Exiting turn 3 and bring the nose in, get that nose in early and hug the curb, then release the car and let it just gradually, as the lock comes off, steering lock comes off, then by the time you straighten up, then you're more or less on the brakes back in to this always tricky and frustrating turn 5. Watch the exit, you can drop a wheel off the edge there, down through turn 6, and then another sequence in front of 7 and 8. Again, keeping the nose tight, don't run wide. That's fine for Marcello, because here on the exit of 8, you want to have maximum attack up the hill into turn 9. Uses a lot of curb on the inside, but not a problem, and runs to the maximum on the outside, but stays within track limits. So down the hill into turn 10, those two cars getting ever and ever closer. And what's going to happen is Marcello is going to catch these two cars through turns 11, 12 and 13, and it will be a frustration. But as we heard on the team radio, the 88 will do 3 laps, then come in, and a fresh set of rubber will go onto that car.
Already the number of track limit offences and lap times taken away is sort of off the screen. It's already onto page 2 of the cycle. So it's all happening at turn 13, seemingly, and you can not only run wide on the exit, but what the officials are also concerned about there is cutting the inside, which is demarked with traffic cones to stop people getting an advantage by going on the cut through. Lorenzo Petrazzi's Audi, currently the fastest, as Marcello dives through the traffic into turn 1, and that's Maxi Gertz looking on for the pit wall. Yeah,
Marcello may have gone quicker, but he caught up to one of the dynamic Porsches out of turn 13. He was much quicker in that little short straight 13 to 14, then had to back out of it because he couldn't find a way through. But nevertheless, Lorenzo Petrazzi, excellent run indeed in the 99 Audi, 141.5, 3/10 of a second quicker than the 88 Mercedes.
So there is Lorenzo Petrazzi, son of former Grand Prix racer and sports car racer Riccardo Petrazzi, who is here, of course, as ever, cheering on his charge. So it is Petrazzi from Marcello, from Alessio Rovera, and then up to 4th fastest now has gone Max Hofer in the Comptiu Audi. But Petrazzi, who of course for Temto Racing is in the Silver Cup, looking very strong right now.
Yes, and I think part of the reason Riccardo, his father, comes to every event is obviously parental support. But I think there's also another practical reason, and that is because he's probably still too young to rent a car.
That's true, yes.
So how am I going to get to the airport, to the racetrack, Dad?
Well, dads do.
The bank of Dad comes along and rents the car, takes the son in. So I mean, one of the anomalies of all these young drivers coming through. You know, some of them are 17, some of them are less than that. They can't rent a car at the airport.
And they can't drink the champagne if they win. Down the pit lane then comes Petrazzi. For the moment, his stint done. Max Hofer's Audi up to 3rd, and Ayhan Guven is pressing on also in number 54 Porsche. He was 6th, but then lap times have been shuffled around again, so the order has gone a little bit haywire as well. Quite a lot of lap times being taken away from BMW number 32, which is the Weert Van Thor van der Linde entry.
Oh, catching your breath over the kick-offer, by the way, and the 159 McLaren just popped up onto the timing and scoring into 11th position, the best of currently the 4 McLarens in the field. That's the Garage 59 entry.
And down the pit lane is Max Hofer, who was 4th fastest. So Alessio Rovera getting ahead of him to go 3rd. There he is in the Ferrari then, the car from AF Corsa stable. Kind of, if you like, reasserting himself as the lead Ferrari team after Iron Lynx, which became quite a strong rival for that mantle, has gone to Lamborghini ranks. And the Ferrari not improving in sectors, whereas Raffaele Marcello has done an absolute best in Mercedes 88 within Sector 1.
Fresh tyres! So there is why there's a difference. So we'll wait to see what Marcello will do in Sector 2. He's on a 40.8. It looks, what I could see, to be probably about the best, but it's not been given a purple sector time indicating it is the overall best. So I would expect Marcello to conclude this lap and find that 3/10 of a second deficit between himself and Lorenzo Petrazzi and head the timing and scoring within the next 20 or so seconds. In fact, that's him coming through.
Yeah.
Turn 14 as I speak, comes up the hill, crosses the start-finish line, and the clock will reset, and where it has, well, we haven't seen it. It hasn't. He's 141.6, so there was a personal improvement, but not enough to change the overall positions.
Still a 10th of a second down. Fabrizio
Speed of
Crestani
car
goes
90
6th.
at pit entry and at pit exit under investigation.
We've voice of Alain Adol, the race director, talking about number 90, which is the Alexei Nesov, Magnus Gustafsson, Ezekiel Perez compact Mercedes for speeding in the pit lane, potentially. It's being looked at, but if the data is presented, then it must have been speeding, because otherwise it wouldn't be an alert. The Ferrari goes through, Rovera then down towards turn 1, John.
Yes, of course, in conjunction with Écurie Francorchamps, the great Belgian Ferrari team. Jacques Swalders was the owner of that company, and of course they raced under their own yellow, the Belgian racing colours, in the 50s and 60s with great success, and an acknowledgement of that as an homage, if you wish, to the Belgian team with the yellow. You can see the diagonal sign or job on the side of the doors and on the parts of the bodywork. Great colour scheme, and what a great team.
So the Ferrari through the sister car, David Rigon, you're riding with now, and Rigon a 1:42.4 is his best effort. Marcello, 2 personal bests, 2 absolute bests on this lap. So Raffaele Marcello having a good go now.
Yeah, Marcello is going on, and he got purple pepper. He's got a clear racetrack. We don't know what it's going to be in that final sector. We are not on board. We're running with still David Rigon. Well, there we are now on board. Marcello does it, so he goes up to 1:41.295, just over a quarter of a second ahead of Lorenzo Petrazzi. So status quo, one might say, depending on how fresh that rubber was and what tyres Lorenzo Petrazzi was running on, but 2 cars running now significantly quicker than the rest of the field. Rovera, the next best and third. He's 7/10 of a second behind Marcello.
So here to the line comes Rigon. He's down to 12. Didn't look necessarily like this was going to offer up any improvements, did it, with those sector times not being stunning. Stays 12 then as he goes through. We've just had Farfus into the pit lane. We've also got number 91 Porsche in as well. How is the Sky Tempesta McLaren doing? 14th is the answer. Eddie Cheever at the wheel of it.
Yeah, and the best McLaren is the number 5, Sam Dahan, and he is up in 7th place in the Optimum Motorsports entry. So that's beginning to show its pace, as are the other McLarens in the field. As the Sky Tempesta is the second of the McLarens. Then further down, Chavez and Kierhofer rounding out the tail of the field, but they've yet to start running what I would call serious laps. They've just gone out, done a couple of out laps, and then back in again. On the limit, I mean, didn't leave an awful lot. I mean, that was a good exit from Eddie Cheever. The balance of the car looked to be pretty good to me, and ran out to the very limit, but didn't allow that rear wheel, that left rear wheel, to drop into the gravel.
Makes that climb up towards turn 12. Marcello the fastest at the moment, then by 0.278 of a second from Petrazzi, Rovera, Hoffer, Guven, and then Jeff Machiel's going well for a relative rookie in 6th in the times with the Ferrari that he shares with his father Louis and with Andrea Bertolini. Eddie Cheever with a bit of an up and down lap in the sectors, gained in the sector number 1 and lost in 2 and loses in 3 as well. So stage 14th in the times. Here he is in super slow-mo. This is coming through turns 7 and 8, where they drift a little bit wide and head for the curb.
Just keep an eye on that rear tyre, that right rear, as he runs over the curb, and again it's the amount of sidewall deflection, the forces that are going into that right rear tyre. I mean, really giving the sidewall of the tyre severe working out, and well, everybody seems pretty content in the Sky Tempesta team. Back to the old laptops and computers and analyse what that last lap from Eddie Cheever was all about. Where could we make up time? Where did we lose time? Just information gathering all. Oh, what's happened? Max Hoffer's gone quickest in the Audi.
By 1/10 of a second,
wow.
The Comtu entry, yeah, really good lap with 2 personal bests and an absolute. You're looking at Jordan Pepper right now, who is 10th fastest in the Lamborghini, with, if you like, the works number. So it illustrates the importance it's out of the Iron Link stable. He's got a face full of gravel because there was a car that ran wide ahead of him there, coming from 12 into 13. So Jordan Pepper through. The track is going to get dirtier and messier with people running wide and bringing gravel onto the road. Also with rubber being jumped to one side. Pepper goes through, stays 10th quickest.
Interesting, and also Lorenzo Hazemans in 12 up to 4th place for Comtu Audi.
Now, we've been saying how good Lorenzo Petrazzi is going. Proud dad Ricardo is looking at all of this. He's with Gemma Scott.
Ricardo, from Formula One to chauffeur for your son and bringing him to the races every weekend, it's great to see you here and supporting him. He's had quite an impact this year in setting his feet as a GT driver.
Well, I'm very happy for him that he's able to show his potential. And as you said, I am the chauffeur of him because he doesn't have yet the driving license. He's like just 18 a couple of weeks ago. I think he's improving from the maturity point of view, and he's doing a good job also in the team, working with engineers and mechanics. That I think sometimes is more important than the speed. The speed, of course, you need the speed, but also the attitude you have inside the team is very important. And I'm happy for this especially because he's growing up.
But also, from your point of view as a father, how difficult is it to really praise him, having been through your own career yourself? I said to you earlier, he's done a brilliant season. You said maybe not brilliant, there's more to learn.
Well, I mean, as a father, when he's racing, not because of fear, but because, you know, I hope that he can have a good result at the end. I'm suffering a lot, really a lot. Much more than when I was driving myself. So for me, it was much easier to be in a racing car than watch my son racing. I think, you know, we had this choice to GT and maybe even more if we can, like hypercar, is because I think these categories, they are going up very much and the interest of public is growing up. And I think also you have real racing in these categories. Not many penalties anyway. There is a little bit of fighting that I like very much because I am of that school.
It's definitely a close championship. But the one thing I'd like to know, does Lorenzo have the same confidence that you had when you were starting out racing?
Well, yes, I think so because I started with Formula Italia, Formula 3, second year in cars. In Formula 3 I got the European Championship, so immediately I started to be quick. As Lorenzo is going, he's showing at the moment. Okay, speed was there also last year, but now speed and continuity is coming. That is very important to be on the top level. So I think really, because when he asked me to be a racing driver, the first word I said no, forget it, too complicated. But he's convincing also myself that they can be a good driver one day, a good professional driver maybe.
He certainly seems to be proving himself. Thank you for talking to us, Ricardo. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Great to hear from Ricardo Petrazzi, and he talks about his early career being quick. He also got a reputation for being a bit wild.
That was the reason why the question was asked, and I think Ricardo went through a very difficult phase of his career in Formula One in 1978. We don't need to go into the detail of it all. I think Lorenzo, as a young man, and probably at the level that Lorenzo's racing at, he's just turned 18. It's pretty high for an 18-year-old. And I think what Lorenzo has got is a mixture of Ricardo and his mother.
Yeah.
So Lorenzo isn't 100% Ricardo. He's the mix of mum and dad, and how that actually is different to Ricardo would be very interesting to put them both down and maybe spend a bit of time. There was a great program years ago called In the Psychiatrist's Chair.
Yes.
I could be the psychiatrist asking that question, but I have to ask myself a few questions before I did it.
Well, there's a thought. The car you're looking at in the pit lane is number 79 Mercedes, that being the Adrian Meiney, Sebastian Bode, Hubert Haupt Mercedes. It runs in bronze. But the fact that it's in its box suggests this could be a long stop and may even have a problem.
Well, and there may be an issue or two they want to look at, and they want to do it in the pit box because the pit lane is so busy, there's not enough room. And if you want to put the car up on your axle stands or on your air jacks, take the wheels off and maybe make a mechanical change, maybe an adjustment on some of the suspension components, then you need to do that in the garage where it is safe to allow the entire team to work on the car, not just be restricted to 2 people in the pit lane. So, 91 Porsche comes through. Ralph Bone behind the wheel. currently in 8th position, looking to see whether any potential personal best in sector 1, personal best sector 2, and stays 8th quickest, but should have been an improvement of 142.8, I think it was 42.2, I beg your pardon.
Now 91, which is fighting for class honours, presses on. 21 in the pits. It was looking good earlier. Max Hofer brought it in. That's been in the pits for a little while. And they're 81. With Jafari's Mercedes in the pits. Let's listen in.
It's good. I still think that rear is on edge at high speed.
Okay, we're just going to have a look at the tyres, see if there's any pickup or anything. That could be affecting the car balance. But generally speaking, so struggling with understeer, say, because it's 3, and then entry stability on the limit.
Yeah, for 3 and 4, and then entry stability is 9, 13, 14 is okay, but 9 and 13, the rear is on the limit.
An interesting observation from Rima Jafari. Certainly turn 3, I think probably the common sort of opinion is that as you get midway to the exit, the front of the car is beginning to just wash, because partly the track there, that's the characteristic of that corner on the circuit, but also again just depending on the state of your tires. But then she's complaining likewise in turn 9 and turn 10 of oversteer. Now you do not want oversteer in turn 9. Turn 10 is a much slower corner, and it's a much easier issue to deal with. You can deal with it very much because you're in a lower gear and you've got the control of the throttle pedal. You can short shift, you can try and mitigate any sort of big surge and torque that might kick the tail of the car out. So she looks like she's got things under control. And in the meantime, we've got another improvement up to 6th place for the 89 Mercedes of Ricardo Baptista, the Baptista family car, up to 6th place.
Rima Jafari then in the Theba Racing Mercedes, just keeping out of harm's way. Former Grand Prix team boss and very successful junior single-seater team owner John Booth connected to this squad, as another Formula 1 link, David Schumacher, has just gone up to 21st, Ralf Schumacher's son. And Dries Van Thor is up to 23rd. As you look at the Mercedes then, we're almost at the end of the first third of the session. There's a BMW on a big mission in the background, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, that you can see it carried so much more speed through turn 9 than the Mercedes did, so that's the 31. And that just literally was just carrying a lot more pace. And again, you can tell there was a lot more available grip in the BMW on this lap than Jafari had in her Mercedes. But she's hanging there, she's keeping in touch. But coming to the conclusion of a lap, your tyre is always going to start screaming enough, as the BMW dives into the pits and then gives Jafari a little bit more clear air to focus on what she wants to do.
Pit stop time due as drivers get themselves ready. Gloves on, helmet already on, the radio will be plugged in. And Jules Brunon, who these days of course races under this Andorran licence, will be taking over from Raffaele Marcello on the car's next visit to the pit stop. There's Timo Bogoslavski in the background. Maxi Gertz says, go on, get on with it. And strides away, waiting for his drive. So Marcello being given first duties, if you like, set the car up. Fred Verviche's Audi now up to 2nd. And Neil Verhagen here, who's a long way back, 37th, and goes very wide at 14. That lap may not stand as a consequence of that. Let's see. But let's look at the time first. Down in the last sector as well, so not an improvement.
No, didn't see all the lap. I just got him coming out of turn 14. No surprise, Fred Verviche's popped up to 2nd quickest behind Marcello again. It'll be, oh, look at the BMW sliding around. And, I mean, the reality is, you can see again the slide as he comes out of turn 3. Not an awful lot of grip at the rear for Neil Verhagen, but you know, this is what it might be a bit like come Sunday, when whoever's in the car coming to the conclusion, again, just under par at the back, swinging around, a very gentle, very, I'd say, pretty little move. But again, it's time consuming. And ultimately, you know, it's not going to go quicker, but if you can find a consistency in the balance, then at least you've got something.
So here is Verhagen, again bouncing up the curb, and that just unsettles the car a little bit on the exit there of turn 7 and 8. And the sister car here, Dries Van Thor, into the top 10. And this could be an improvement again. 2 personal bests, although it doesn't look that quick to the eye.
No, but that's the point. Because the car's not sliding around, as we saw for Hagen's BMW, Dries Van Thor has got a car that is going forward rather than sideways.
So 10th he was. Lucas Stoltz has gone fastest by 2/10 of a second. Dries Van Thor goes 6th, but we've got a Mercedes 1-2 now because treble 7, the Lucas Stoltz, Mauro Engel, Fabian Schiller car is now the quickest in this session.
Yes, and that's really the first time I think all day we've seen the true pace of that 777 Mercedes, and no surprise yet again to see it currently head of the field.
Now, what else do we need to be looking for? Dennis Lind has got behind the wheel of the Barwell Lamborghini and will no doubt get it by the scruff of the neck. Valentino Rossi is now into the number 46 BMW. And Paul Everard, who went well in sprint in Valencia, he's up into the top 10 now.
So we're now coming up to the end of the first 30 minutes of this pre-qualifying session. And it's now Mercedes, Thomas Drouet in the 87. Koda's ASP. Mercedes is now 3rd behind the sister car, Marcello in 2nd, and Patrick Assenhammer in the number 3 Get Speed. Mercedes likewise has joined into the top 6. We've got 4 Mercedes right now in the top 6 places.
Fred Verviche leaving nothing on the table, hooking a wheel over the curb, the very rapid Belgian driver who's driven for CompTU in touring cars, in TCR as well as in GT, way up the curb on the inside there.
I'm talking about track limit abuse. He took about 50 yards out of that corner by cutting. I don't know whether that will be observed as a track limit abuse, but maybe he's found grip doing so that nobody else has explored.
So the lap lost a bit of time in that middle sector. 4th quickest at the moment is Fred Verviche. Runs it wide coming out of turn 14 up toward the line. And Verviche goes through and the lap is 1:41.413.
It's a better lap.
Yeah, absolute best in the last sector. Puts him 3rd if it stays.
I mean, he ran to the very edge coming out of turn 14, but he had the car parallel to the edge of the track. He wasn't sliding. And you couldn't have had another sort of millimetre between the car and dropping a wheel off. And I mean, Fred Verviche, we know he's a quick driver. He sometimes tends to fly under the radar compared to some of the younger teammates that he's lined up with. But make no mistake, Fred Verviche knows how to drive a race car.
Very true. And like many of these Audi drivers, when the Audi Sport programme comes to an end at the end of the season, then he'll be on the job market, and it's going to be interesting to see who wins, who loses out of all the musical chairs, and who ends up where and with which brands.
Well, I mean, with Audi as a factory withdrawing, and therefore the support that all these satellite Audi teams have had, what's going to happen to all the Audi equipment? Is it going to float around and end up doing national championships, or will there be some kind of saviour to come along and enable these cars? Because these cars are still capable of winning any race throughout the season.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of capital tied up, isn't there, from CompTU and from Attempto, amongst others. So, yes, it'll be interesting to see, as we say, who gets what, where. The cars can still be run. The parts are there until they run out of parts, even if Audi Sport isn't actively involved. Valentino Rossi, I think we touched on behind the wheel of 46, but he's a long way down. This is Maxime Robin in the Bullet Racing. Aston, good to have Bullet back on the grid as well.
So the Aston is sort of lasering in onto the back of Valentino's BMW into turn 4, and Aston Martin could hold slightly tighter line mid-corner than Rossi was able to do in the BMW. So looking at what we've got on screen, one would say that in terms of potential, the Aston is slightly quicker than the BMW.
So they're number 40 Audi, the Attempto run car. They've changed the brakes on it, we understand, and that is a car, of course, fighting for honours in sprint, which will go down to the wire in 2 weeks' time, but it hasn't done a lap yet in this session. So clearly it was a big brake drama because it's only done 3 laps and they've all been in laps.
Right, so Riccardo Fella was the driver who went out in the car initially, so he's still the name on our timing and scoring. It may have changed once the car trips the transponder going across the start-finish line or pit lane exit, then we will know who is behind the car.
Yeah, another one that's in trouble is Marco Mappelli, who is the penultimate. Thomas Drouet has just gone up to second in the times at 1:41.1. That's 3 Mercedes then in the top 3. Here comes Valentino Rossi up towards the line, being chased by Maxime Robin. Let's hear from Dennis Marshall, but he might be able to shed light on the brake drivers. He's with Gemma.
Dennis, we've just seen a rather long pit stop. What have you been changing on the car?
To be honest, what exactly, I do not know. Maybe you need to ask Ricardo as soon as he jumps out of the car. But so far, it's not an easy weekend for us. We're struggling quite a bit, especially the Audis, I think. It's not easy this weekend so far. So, yeah, we've been doing many changes, trying everything, basically.
Mattia told me there were new brakes going on the car.
Ah, yeah, true. Yeah, I forgot, actually. Good point. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And you were well volunteered for the interview with a game of rock, paper and scissors.
Yeah, I won against Mattia. Maybe he was a bit too shy, or feel free to ask him right now. He's a bit free now. I think he will go in the car in the next 20 minutes. So.
Thank you very much. We're feeling confident coming into the weekend that the car setup changes you're making are going to put you up the top.
Sorry? Say again?
Confident that the setup changes you've made are going to put you higher up in the standings?
Not 100%. Like I said, the previous weekends it went quite well. But I don't know, this weekend since yesterday we've been struggling quite a bit. Just we have no grip on track. And yeah, but we are trying our best. Maybe we can solve it for tomorrow morning in qualifying.
Best of luck. Thank you.
Is that forgetfulness or diplomatic forgetfulness?
I think it's keeping your cards close to your chest. Don't tell anybody what you've just done, because that's information that they may benefit from. I got a big slap on my wrist for once saying something which I felt was unimportant. And team director, technical director went off the radar. Had a real hissy fit. He's calmed down now.
Who was it?
Let me put it this way. It was 40 years ago.
Oh, okay.
You can work out where it was.
I probably can. Thomas Drouet here, we touched on, who was up to second in the times, looking strong. And 29 thousandths behind Fabian Schiller, who is now the quickest. Alex Arca is up to 5th. Patrick Assenheimer has taken over number 3 Get Speed Mercedes. That's the one that he shares with Lucas Auer. Neil Verhagen up to 17th. So, again, that first third of the session, if you like, was where we had the flurry of improvements and shuffling. Now, it's kind of stabilising a little bit. People are going for a race run. But Thomas Drouet staying behind the wheel of 87 and second in the times, but not improving this time through.
But again, just look at the car. You can see the car is what I would describe as tracking. It's got no wasted energy. It's going through the corners cleanly. He's coming obviously now into the pits. But the reason that car has elevated itself up to second quickest is because they have got a level of grip above and beyond the majority of others behind. In the meantime, is it Ben Green in 35? In the BMW, he's done a great job. He's now 5th quickest. The only driver who's improved on the last lap.
He's been a winner in the German Championship in the past. Nikolai Schiergaard here, almost reaching the gravel, coming out of turn 14, 31st, stays 31st in fact, in 1:59. So the McLarens at the moment being headed by the always rapid Enrique Chavez, who's had another season of taking people by the neck and saying, look at me, look how good I am. And although that car runs within the bronze category, it is 15th overall, going well. Dennis Olsen in the Rutronic Porsche. This was a car that seemed to struggle this morning, and it's not come alive yet, only 26th.
But on this particular lap, you got green by just a 10th of a second, and then fractionally less than a 10th of a second. So he's going to make a small improvement from 26th, assuming he goes through final sector. Well, Dennis Olsen has gone, I'm looking to see where he's gone up to 3rd. That last sector was mega.
That was more like it. So the Rutronic Porsche up to 3rd. So now we're starting to see what the Porsche might be capable of. That's the quickest car in the session, treble 7. Fabian Schiller at the wheel of it. The Almanar Racing car.
We always look to the 88 Mercedes, the Acutis ASP car with Marcello and Gunnar and Boguslawski as being the definitive Mercedes that everybody has to match. But here we are. We've got the 777, and it's doing a great job. This is AMG, a Mercedes AMG team, Almanar. And, I mean, why is this car quicker than the 88? Well, maybe there are small differences in the setup of the car. Maybe the tyre on this car is maybe that little bit fresher. maybe, would you ever suggest that Lucas Stolz or Mauro Engel or Fabian Schiller are quicker than Raffaele Marcello?
It's an interesting point.
It's a question a pub bore of the year would ask at a pub question.
Discuss, indeed. One for a nice bottle of something later on. But, I mean, that's the beauty of Mercedes or Audi or Porsche's factory roster. They've got all of these good drivers, and they can then distribute them across the ranks to the different teams and make sure that all are competitive. Going off on a tangent, but this year in British GT, of course, Johnny Adam has ended up driving with Mercedes for 2 Cs. You kind of pigeonhole him as being an Aston Martin driver, and yet quite often he's shown the likes of a Gunon or a Marcello the way home. Now, some of that might be down to circuit knowledge, but maybe that means that Johnny Adam is better than we gave him credit for, and he's not just an Aston Martin one-trick pony, for want of a better phrase.
I mean, certainly, I know the credit you give Johnny Adam, I know the credit I give him. For some reason, I don't know why his career has been fundamentally a domestic UK career, although he's driven in this series on a number of seasons. But, I mean, Johnny Adam is one of those class acts that you always wonder, why has he not been in a full pro car, in a full pro team, and standing on the winner's podium overall?
Yeah, true. Davide Rigon for Ferrari has found himself in a whole heap of traffic here. He's up to 5th, but this lap's going to ebb away because just look at what's up the road. Lots and lots of cars.
Now, that little change that was taking place in the 40 Audi, and I heard Dennis Marshall saying, oh, we're in all sorts of problems. Car, we can't get it down. Well, the car is just suddenly in the first flying lap behind, with Ricardo fellow behind the wheel, has suddenly got himself into the top 20. So it's not that bad, Dennis. Is it really? You know, keep your cards close to your chest. Yeah. Don't let's see what you got in your hand.
So 19th overall and just over a second off the top time. Fabian Schiller is in the pit lane. Lorenzo Ferrari has now taken over 87, that's second fastest from Thomas Drouet. And again, looking down from the drone, you can see just how busy the paddock is. You can see the track going down towards turn 1, and you're on board again with the Ferrari as Davide Rigon sets the car up for turn 1. Stuck in traffic, and that's going to compromise all of this exit from 2. This is 3, which is a long, long corner.
Yeah, I mean, the rest of the lap, I mean, he's had to back out of it because the Audi directly ahead has backed out, so another lap that's going to be, as a consequence, compromised. Wow, K-Pax gives it the full bananas from a grid position just on the pit lane, spins up the rear wheels.
Marco Rapelli at the wheel of it, and he's been in the pit lane for over 10 minutes, so you can understand why he wants to be on track, because they've wasted a lot of the session thus far with the problem.
So car 44, pit lane, so it says speed in pit lane, so 44, and you can tell me this is the CLRT Porsche, Stephen Paulette, Fred Macavicki and Clement Mathieu.
There he is.
So it's Mathieu behind the wheel. So which of the 3 drivers was the guilty culprit? Well, we don't know. We always say it's the car gets the blame anyway.
That's true enough. Well, Clement Mathieu, for me, it's one of the nicest looking cars on the grid, that. The Hexis colour scheme, back in GT Racing, run by Com Ledegaard's team. And Clement Mathieu, Carrera Cup France peddler, is at the wheel of it right now. Behind is the Valkenhorst BMW. And that car is 7th, Ben Green at the wheel of it. Perhaps what this session is showing more than this morning's is what happens when it gets busy, what happens when you find yourself in a pack of cars. Seemingly, you don't make progress, it's hard to get through.
Well, the difference is in a race, everybody will more or less in the same situation regarding tyres. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of follow my leader unless a driver makes an error and opens up an opportunity.
Number 2 Mercedes goes up out of turn 8, and that's another car climbing up the order with Aaron Walker at the wheel. So Fabian Schiller, who's been driving treble 7, now with Antonio Rankin in the pit lane.
Fabian setting some excellent lap times out there with the conditions being how they are. Do you think that will translate into good race pace?
Yeah, well, it's hard to judge. I mean, everyone's on different tires, but yeah, we're feeling good so far. I think our car's performing in both colder and hotter conditions. So yeah, the team is doing a great job, and I think us as a driver pairing, us 3 drivers, I think we are well sorted out. So yeah, everything looking good good so far.
Do you think tyres will come into it this weekend with degradation being so high?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the track is incredibly hard on tires, so yeah, it will be tough. It's a survival game out there, I think, for everyone, and I think we have a very good car for that. Usually the Mercedes is pretty smooth with the tires, so yeah, we're looking forward to a hot race, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, best of luck.
I reckon Fabian Schiller is as smooth as his Mercedes is, that interview.
Well, right now, this car the fastest by 29 thousandths of a second. And of course, much as they will want to win the race, then there is also the Mercedes brand to consider. There are global points, of course, as well. So whether the car might be sacrificed to help 88, run by a different team, we'll find out tomorrow. But right now, it's certainly proving he's got the pace to be up there as a potential winner.
And just going back to what Fabian Schiller was saying, I mean, the ambient temperature and track temperature, but track temperature in particular, has gone up by just under 5 degrees since this session got underway. We're coming up to halfway through it. So the temperature is going up and up and up as the afternoon progresses.
So Maro Engel installed behind the wheel of the car now. And coming down that back straight towards turn 10, where you stand on the brakes, turn left. It's that long hairpin. That's the first bit, and the second clipping point, if you like, now. We've got another improvement, which is Alex Fontana, who has taken over number 24 Porsche. He is very much the star turn in that. I don't think he drove it at all this morning, but he's now gone up into 6th overall.
And the next car in that category is down to 35th. That's the Ferrari of Lachlan Hannafin. So big difference between the pace of those two cars in terms of their own individual class. So good job by Alex Fontana to get his Porsche all the way up to 6th quickest overall.
Hubert Haupt goes through. Hugely experienced driver and player manager, effectively. It's HRT, Haupt Racing Team. Twitch there as he fights the car up the hill.
Yeah, a little momentary oversteer moment, so Hubert Haupt had to apply a bit of opposite lock, maybe a little lift at the throttle to help check the rear slide. Runs pretty wide coming out of 13. Doesn't need very much remaining on the runoff area to keep the car in control, but he's under pressure from behind the Barwell Lamborghini light shows that Dennis Olsen behind the wheel, or I can't work out who it is.
Dennis Lind.
Or Dennis Lind, not so I've got the Dennis right, but not the right.
Yeah.
So coming through turn 7 and 8, and you can see just how far wide, and they're just about avoided getting into the gravel on the transition between turn 7 and turn 8.
Best time this morning by Dries Van Voor, 1 minute 39.888. Best this afternoon by number 777 Mercedes Lucas Stoltz, 1 minute 41.076. So a fair bit slower in these high temperatures.
Yeah, I mean, it's to be expected. We always know that the morning here in Barcelona is going to be one of the best parts of the day. The next best part of the day will be 6:30, 7:30. Once the air temperature starts to fall back, never quite drops down to the level of what it would be first thing in the morning, because by the time it would do, it would be dark, and nobody runs in the dark here. Well, certainly not this weekend.
So there is 78, Dennis Lind at the wheel, only 37th, so perhaps not thinking about a time, thinking about setup and a pace. I know we said it this morning, but he's another driver for me that doesn't get the recognition he deserves. Having had a brief spell with Lamborghini, it's still a surprise that another brand hasn't picked him up, because he always delivers.
Absolutely, 100%. But I mean, just looking up and down, timing and scoring, I mean, the car that ended up second quickest this morning, had been quickest for the bulk of that session, was the 911 Porsche. Joel Sturm did a stunning lap on his first flying lap. That car, Sturm, is now behind the wheel, 39th. So explain. Oh, I'll answer the question myself.
Go on then.
Go on, tell me. Come on, tease it out of me, David. Tease it out of me.
John, share it. Indeed. And to an extent, maybe a fuel load, and there going rally crossing is one of the many Audis. That's Nicola Bart's car coming out of turn 9. And all that serves to do, of course, is drag gravel onto the racetrack.
And all 4 cars following took evasive action straight across the racetrack to the right-hand side, in case that Audi went wayward and came out of the corner facing the wrong direction.
They're back on track number 6. Marco Mappelli still has a problem. because they've yet to do a proper lap time. Now, Sandy Mitchell might be able to explain what it's all about. Sandy, of course, we know is a British GT champion, and he's with Antonio right now in the pit lane.
Sandy, we saw you having a few issues with the car. What's going on?
Yeah, we just had a bit of an issue at the start of the session with the gearbox. So Marco was struggling to change down the gears going into the corners. But yeah, we've had the car in the garage for a little bit, and the problem seems to be resolved. So yeah, going out on some better tyres now, and yeah, see what we've got. So it makes the session slightly shorter than we planned, but hopefully we can still make it worthwhile.
Okay, well, fingers crossed. Will you still be able to get some good laps in the car?
Thanks. Yeah, I'll go and get ready now, and yeah, see what we can do.
Fantastic. Best of luck.
Right, gearbox dramas there, thanks Antonio. It derails the run plan a little bit, so yeah, they can't afford much more time in the pits because they've lost effectively, 40 minutes or so.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is when you lose that amount of time, you very suddenly sort of refocus, regroup, replan your program, and at the end of the day, you Marpelli's out of the slow-mo camera is going slow-mo, or he's dropped out of it as we go on board again with the drone getting that lovely view up through turn 12, then the run down to turn 13. But I suspect that as the K-Pax Lamborghini, they've had their issues, but they'll get through the vital parts of the program they need. Whether they'll give all three drivers an equal amount of time behind the wheel is a secondary issue. So Sandy Mitchell's going to get dressed and booted, whatever, and he will go out and do his run with 43 minutes remaining. Tons of time to get it all done, get it in, and give all three drivers a fair crack behind the wheel.
Yeah, the third driver of that car being from Pereira, who went out briefly at the start of the free practice session. Now let's have a look at Marpelli and see what the lap time is. Remember, this is the car at the moment at the bottom of the times. He's coming up towards turn 4. Yes, there is traffic up the road, but anything really will be an improvement because, fingers crossed, this is the first lap he will have done with the car behaving as he wants it to and feeling like he wants it. He's done a personal best within the first sector. Marco Marpelli then now heading down out of turn 5.
Right, so I mean, it wasn't going to be a bit of a stretch to get your personal best because this is going to be the quickest flying lap that the the number 6 K-Pax Lamborghini has had a chance to do, running the curve on the entry through 7, but not bad. He gathers it all up, gets it pointing in the right direction up the hill into turn 9. That's the car stays well within the limit on the exit of turn 9, down the hill now into turn 10. Again, the car actually looking, the body language, it doesn't look bad. I can't say the car's given the driver Marpelli a hard time. He's made personal best first and second sector. The second sector picked up almost second, backed out of it now, traffic ahead of him. And that's another lap. Now that's what frustrates a racing driver. He's done all the hard yards on the first 2 sectors, and then he's got to check up. And now he's going to go again, but he's got traffic behind him. So he's got to be aware of what's behind, as well as what I've got to try and avoid catching before I get to the conclusion of a lap.
Runs it out wide as well, coming out of turn 14. So it was a slow last sector, therefore he stays slowest of all. Yellow flag out because we've got the Baptista Mercedes facing the wrong way coming up the hill, and also there 38 Ferrari.
I think there may have been a little bit of a contact between the Ferrari and the Mercedes down into the entry of turn 2, just coming out of turn 1. So it might have begun at the exit of turn 1 and concluded into turn 2.
Morgan Hannafin at the wheel of the Ferrari, darting left and right, trying to clean the tyres maybe.
And again, frustration for Marpelli because he's the next car behind the Ferrari. Wants to clear that as quickly as possible, which he's going to do down the inside. Will the door be left open or will it be slammed? Shut that door!
If I say Larry Grayson, half of our audience won't know who we're talking about, John, but I'm with you.
But the other half, they're the ones that matter.
Now, the Marco Marpelli Lamborghini down in Sector 1. Still got that yellow flag out in Sector 2, so technically people shouldn't be improving anyway. And Finlay Hutchison here in the Audi number 12, down the hill. That car is, at the moment, 14th in the times.
Yep. So we've got Sam Dunja and Loris, and I said Lorenzo, Loris Hazemans, the son of Twan Hazemans. Oh, look at that. And they had sliding the car through turn 7, but keeps it moving forward up the hill. So Loris Hazemans, who spent time doing NASCAR in America, doing a European NASCAR, and of course Twan, who was, I think, European champion in touring cars, and raced Porsche GTs and Alfa Romeos and prototype racing. What a family heritage and lineage.
Mike Heserman's FIA GT race winner over the years, and Corvettes, Vipers, Spa 24, and Zola 24-hour winner as well. Right, so Hutchison then pressing on, and 89 is under investigation for an unsafe rejoin. So we'd seen the car having spin, 89 being the Acodis Mercedes of the Baptista family, but it's being looked at for an unsafe rejoin. Hutchison goes through no quicker, stays 14th in the time for that car.
That car is presently second in the silver category. But there's a gap between 9th, there's the leader Delaguardi, and then the 12 car Finlay Hutchinson and 14th, so 5 cars between them. But then Edward Bastard, only 2 places behind in that silver category in 16th place. So that's a competitive category, the silver category.
83 heading for the pit box. Now, is that a problem? Of course, you can have more people work on the car, but Rahal Frey brought it in, only 47th in the time, so maybe a problem for the Iron Dames Lamborghini.
So, as an indecision as to whether to push the car in the garage, no, we're going to do it. Just change a set of tyres. And who is behind the wheel of the Iron Dames presently is Rahal Frey. So the car is 47th, not reflective of the potential of both the Lamborghini and of the drivers.
Not much urgency though in that pit stop. There's the Mad Panda Mercedes, Alexei Nesov at the wheel of it, and it's a team base just over the road from the circuit. So very much a home race for the Mad Pandas.
Looks just catching a view of the rear of the car, maybe moving a little bit more than other Mercedes. Again, we don't know what tire they're on, what the setup of that car might be vis-a-vis the other Mercedes AMG GT3s. So currently in 51st position, 143.5 is the best lap that car has achieved so far in this 1.5-hour pre-qualifying session.
Marco Mappelli up to 22nd then, from 54th to 22nd, which is a pretty sizable gain. So that would suggest that the car is not far off being okay, because it's only 1.031 of a second off the top time. Nesov runs wide, finds the gravel.
Yep, but he stays on track, gets down the hill, and the left side of the car, the tyres on the left side, maybe a little bit dirtier than those on the right as the consequence of running very wide in turn 9, but by the time he gets down to turns 10 and 11, and then the extension, which becomes turn 12, ought to be reasonably good, have a good amount of bite feel. The car looks not too bad. So now it comes into the final turn. Where's that traffic directly ahead of him? Not coming into play.
To the line he comes then, Nesov goes through, and 52nd. It's a bit of a surprise that, because that car should be much, much further up the order. We know what the Mercedes is capable of, because they're first and second outright. This is Mappelli, and he's coming up towards the end of the lap, and it looks good, but it looks wide as well. And just looking at the clock, he has had this lap time cancelled already for going wide at turn 3. So Mappelli, I think, is in jeopardy of not keeping that, which is a real shame.
Yeah, I mean, it looked as if it personal best first and second sector, but if he's gone too wide and track limit has been triggered, therefore it's a lost lap.
So stays 22nd as a result of that. Last lap not counted.
So where is Mappelli? Well, he didn't do anything wrong there.
No.
At a turn 3, he didn't do something into turn 4.
So he battles on, and all of a sudden the car just seemed to be not quite looking right to my eyes. It went through turn 4. Keep an eye on it though. Almost like it had a low tyre. Anyway, we'd also got concerned about the Iron Dames Lamborghini. Antonia has caught up with Sarah Bovey to find out more.
Sarah, how's your weekend going so far?
Well, we do as usual. We keep the head down. We work hard. We've met some good steps since yesterday. There was a lot of work to do, but so far so good. I mean, we are going into the right direction. It's not done yet. We are still not happy where we are, but I feel like everybody is really focused to go and get better. So I think for tomorrow we should be ready, and we'll try to do our best.
Has everything gone to plan in all of the practice sessions and pre-quali? Has anything come up? I know a lot of teams are really struggling with tyre degradation and track limits especially.
Yeah, this track is always a bit of a nightmare for the team. It's also very difficult to know exactly where you are because, you know, everybody is doing different things, different working plans and everything. But yeah, Barcelona is always difficult. The difference of temperature between the morning and the afternoon, the track is evolving a lot. So yeah, it's not easy to understand exactly if you are in the right window or if you're in the right pace. So you really need to be focused on, you know, yourself and your own feeling, and hopefully, you know, tomorrow when comes the time for the quali and for the race, we will be in the good window.
Absolutely. I mean, what are your targets for the race? Are you aiming obviously high?
Well, you know, we always go into the race weekend hoping we can end up with a podium or something like that in our class, because we know we are competitive. But at the end of the day, it's also a development year. Is the first year for us with the Lambo, and what we want to see is good progress, good preparation for the future as well. So yeah, we just try to stay focused, and if we can go back with the satisfaction that we have worked hard and we went into the good direction, it's already good.
Absolutely, a great sentiment festival this weekend.
David, the window Sarah Bovey was referring to, unfortunately, it's not in a fixed position. It's continually changing.
Yeah.
And you're almost following the racetrack rather than this is the program we want to stick with and this is what we're going to do. Because if you end up following a racetrack, you end up chasing your own tail. So it takes a lot of discipline from a team and from a technical side of the team to say, we know what this car will do in this condition this morning, we know what it's going to do this afternoon. And rather than trying to chase a lap time now for something which in real terms may not have any bearing in qualifying tomorrow morning or even no bearing in the race on Sunday afternoon. And that's where experience from both a driver and a team really is invaluable.
Rahul Frey, Sarah Bovey and Michelle Gatting, the three drivers. Michelle, Grunol's partner, and Rahul Frey, very, very experienced racer from not just GTs, but the DTM as well. She was part of the Audi stable and then raced Audis in German GT and in this championship's equivalent years ago. So keep an eye to the Lamborghinis. You've heard they're not quite happy with where it is, but they're chipping away, making progress. Best of the Lamborghinis at the moment. You've got to go quite a long way down the line, haven't you? And that will be the Capelli car. Which has now been beaten in turn by Gerhard Tveraza. So Capelli is struggling once more. Lap time's taken off the car, that's why it's down to 54th again.
Okay, so Sandy Mitchell is now behind the wheel of the K-Pax Lamborghini. And we wait to see what he's going to do. In the meantime, there's a little bit of green. It's a bit like, you know, our English summer, a lot of yellow but not too much green, but we're seeing a few green personal bests popping up.
Great shot of the 12-13 run from the drone there, and this is 14, from which Rahul Frey now comes up towards the line, and 48 car remains, so a long, long way down compared to where they want to be, where they need to be. 31 minutes are on the clock.
So no essential change in the top. Basically, you might say the top six. We've got three Mercedes, two Porsche, and a single Ferrari. Those are the three brands that are dominating presently. And then the best Audi is Christopher Haase in 7th. Best BMW is a 35. And I'm trying to read the name on that. It is Anders Burkhardt. So that's the best BMW. Dries van Thor, second best BMW, but only 13th.
That's Pierre-Louis Chauvet coming down now to turn 1. Another of the cars run by Iron Lynx, just as the Iron Dames car is, all out of the same stable. And Chauvet a long way down, 53rd. So yeah, it's a tough session this for Lamborghini, isn't it?
I mean, it's a tough session all round because just temperatures are continuing to rise. People are trying to save as many sets of tyres for qualifying tomorrow to give each of their three drivers the best opportunity. We know how difficult this race is if you're not able to get your car to the very front of the grid, and obviously you can't get 54 cars on the front row of the grid, so there's going to be some winners and some that are not going to make it. But then once you've achieved your grid position time, then you've got to manage what you're there for, got to deal with.
Chauvet then slower than he needs to be within the first sector, so there's no improvement coming on this lap. But again, you know, it's not all about improving lap times because we're not setting a grid out of this per se. Benjamin Goethe has gone fractionally faster up to 26, the number 159 McLaren, and the lap times being cancelled, it's almost a constant stream of numbers popping up. We've just had a further 5 laps, all cancelled in very, very quick succession, one of which has gone the way of Dennis Lind, and another one for 66, which is the Book of Oz circling Dylan Pereira Audi. But Chauvet goes through and stays 53rd.
I think, again, it's more of a reflection of how much grip has any given car driver pairing got. And, I mean, either you just take it into the garage and say, we've done what we're going to do to continue running. All we're going to do is just wear out the available tyres we have. As you watch Maxime Martin, that car 47th, which is disappointing because we had hoped to see that car with Valentino Rossi running at the front, but we don't know. We don't know. Tomorrow that car could be in pole position. It could just turn over on a dime.
Yeah, today is learning, and they've done the setup for the morning conditions, which was the equivalent to today, free practice, same time of day. This effectively is the race sim now, same time of day. 3-hour race to round out the Endurance Cup tomorrow, and through the traffic, Maxime Martin has a look to get past Manuel Franco, but he can't get past the Ferrari there. Manuel Franco successful in the American Championship this year, and you're looking at Maxime Martin hard at work now.
Yeah, I mean, he's actually now running behind Sandy Mitchell, who's just made the first improvement with the K-Pax Lamborghini. He's up to 47th. So that's Mitchell's first effectively flying lap on board with Maxime Martin, and just you can see the amount of adjustments, these manner adjustments he's having to make coming out of turn 4 now into turn 5. Eases the nose in, waits for the exit. Any oversteer in the exit? No. So got reasonably good traction off the corner. But the lap time in that sector 1, certainly no improvement. And waiting to see whether sector 2 anything can evolve, develop up through the, but running behind another car isn't conducive. It's one of the lovely 296 Ferraris. So he's getting on the headlights to say, look, I'm quicker than you. Let me go through it. Valentino sits back in the pits, and I suppose that's another interview he's carrying out. Man never has, is always in demand.
Not a great session for the BMs, as you've been saying. 35, Ben Green, having given the car over to Anders Buchart, is the best. Dries Van Voor, fastest this morning, is 13th, well, that car is in this session, a 141.8, as against a 139.8. So that gives you an illustration of how much slower this session is collectively.
Yeah, I mean, this is race sim, basically. If you want to stay on track and grind it out for the full 90 minutes, well, you're going to do half race distance, and you'll probably use about a set and a half, if not more, of your allocation of Pirelli tires. So, Maxime Martin. And it's frustrating for a driver because he knows potentially, get me a new set of tires, you know, I'll go out and I'll put this car into the top 5, top 4.
Yeah.
No, you're not going to get them because we want those for tomorrow.
There is Maxi Goetz, who's taken over 87. It was Thomas Drouet that put the car up to second in the times. Maxi Goetz behind the wheel. Again, that great drone shot showing you what turn 10 and 11 is like. Climb the hill up towards turn 12. It's not quite as steep a climb as from the bottom of turn 7, but it's a climb.
David, you know this because you run the circuit, don't you?
This is true.
But I've always said you should run it counterclockwise. There's got to be more downhill than there is uphill, but, well, we'll leave it there.
It's amazing what you do discover, though, about a circuit. And last night, at what, 6 o'clock, straight after the bronze test, just how much gravel there was around the circuit. You know, particularly that turn 7-8 element was one element.
Did the gravel catch you out by any chance?
Nope. No, I stayed to my line, and I was barely on the curb, but I can't claim to be flat very many places. I'll tell you, it was a long, hot afternoon. But yeah, the circuit actually, I think, is tidier now than it was in the morning session. We've perhaps got less gravel over the road.
I think maybe a little bit of what we saw this morning was more a challenge in preparation for qualifying tomorrow morning. Therefore, drivers on slightly fresher rubber pushing a little bit harder, not the case here now.
Now, Valentino Rossi we've been talking about, and Antonio Rankin has caught up with a great man.
Vale, obviously this is a circuit you're very familiar with. You've had some famous races here. How are you feeling for the weekend?
I love Barcelona, I love this circuit because especially with the motorcycle I enjoy a lot. With the car is good, the layout is very good, but the problem is that the grip is very low. So everything becomes very tricky, especially after 7-8 laps. The car slide everywhere, so we need to try to work for find the right balance, because for tomorrow the stint will be very long, in 1 hour. So we need to understand the way to don't lose too much in the second half.
Do you think tyres will be the main issue then? Obviously degradation's ridiculously high in this weather.
Yes, because the track is very slippery. So when the tires slide, you have a lot of temperature and it's very hot. So the degradation is difficult. It's like a rally car after 15 laps.
Oh goodness, well hopefully you enjoy the same success you've had previously, and best of luck this weekend.
Gracias, thank you.
I mean, I understand what he's saying, but what actually is the case, the track in the morning is not very slippery, it's just less slippery than it is now. And then at the end of the evening, if they were running at 6 or 7 o'clock, a lot of that grip would return. So it's ultimately all about the temperature and the bearing it has on the racetrack itself. And as you go through this 9-hour cycle from 9 o'clock to 6 o'clock, it goes through a metamorphosis. It's not quite a butterfly, but it's a metamorphosis.
It's like being the National Geographic Channel, this. We had conversations about lakes earlier on in the day, and now butterflies. Right, 21, which was going rapidly earlier on when Max Hofer was behind the wheel, is 11th, and it's Maxime Soulet behind the wheel right now. We've got just under 23 minutes of this session to go, which, he says, finding wood to touch, has been a little bit calmer than the free practice period this morning when we had a couple of red flags.
Yeah, I mean, it's people are just going, I can't say going through the motions, but this is more, we keep repeating ourselves on what teams and drivers are doing. It's about just dealing with a much lower coefficient of grip in these temperatures, in these conditions. So drivers are not able to push quite to the limit. Now, they might be abusing track limits. In fact, in some cases, there's a lot of track limit abuse because of the cars moving around a great deal more. But the lap times are consistently about 1.5 seconds. Yeah, about 1.5 seconds away from the ultimate time that we can expect to see tomorrow morning in qualifying.
Adalberto Baptista being summoned to the stewards after the session about that unsafe rejoin after his spin earlier. I don't think it involved anybody else, but it might have only narrowly missed somebody else. This is Benji Haitis coming up towards the end of the lap with his Strasser Lamborghini, and wide at turn 14. He is currently 31st in the times. Mirko Bortolotti having got up to 28th in another Lambo, and Haitis not an improver on that lap.
Yes, I think you're correct. And the best Lamborghini, I think, is 28th right now. Mirko Bortolotti has just jumped up ahead of the Reiter entry. So that is not in the script.
No, if you think back to just how good that Bortolotti, Caldarelli, and as it then was Mappelli combination was a few years back, and here they are. Okay, Mappelli with a different team now, and Jordan Pepper in the lineup at Iron Link, but they are really struggling. And this is Benji Haitis' Lamborghini, that again is not being able to make much progress up the order. That said, we're talking about margins of thousands. You know, 29 thousandths, 67 thousandths, then a tenth, then 12 thousandths. But some of those margins are so tight that the lap time might be good, but you know, you only have to find a couple of tenths. You could gain 15 paces.
Yeah, but at the level that we're operating at, with the closeness of the entire field, finding that 0.2 of a second, might as well say, go out and find 2 seconds.
Go find oil.
It's everybody is pushing to the maximum of what their car and they are capable of at any given point in this 90 minutes. So it's how competitive this championship is.
True, true, true. Getting improvement last time from an Audi, and it was Alberto Di Folco's Boots and VDS car, number 9. So Haitis then in traffic, coming up towards turn 13 to 14 at the end of the lap, And again, looking down from the drone, it's onto the pit lane, cars go over the line, and there you see that long pit straight, and then starts to drop, and you get to turn 1, and then left at 2 and right again at 3 in replay. High T's in the super slow-mo, heading for the curb.
Yeah, and that, again, that right rear tire gets such a hammering. It's the angle that the car slides over it. It's not just simply going over it at 180 degrees. It's that 90 degree where it just really ratchets the rear. Ooh, Antonio Fuoco flirting with the outside of turn 14. Didn't make a mistake, but he didn't leave anything. And on board with Fuoco down this long straight. Pick your braking points. On the brakes, down the gears, enter in, take a bit of curve on the inside, that's quite fine. Then it's this transition. Don't go out too far to the right because you want to be able to then maximize your entry into turn 3, get the nose in. It's from here onwards that the front starts to wash out. But Fuoco able to keep the throttle open and take another gear, then down through the gears yet again into turn 4. Looks reasonable. I can't say there's anything that stands out as being a handful. Coming up to the conclusion of sector 1 very shortly. Then this downhill turn 5, always having to wait to get on the throttle. Oh, that's pretty, isn't it? Very nice dust storm.
So number 10 from Boots and VDS, Rui Miojas has gone off at 13 and carries on because he missed pit in. This is how he did it, John.
Oh, never even attempted to take the corner. Just didn't have any front end bite. Couldn't get the front to react. Once you get wide in the corner, then you get onto the dirtier part of the racetrack, and you're sitting there just as a passenger. Fortunately, there's a sufficient amount of runoff on the exit of 13 to enable them to come back on track without any damage to the car, other maybe a bit of peppering on the underside of the car from the gravel.
So the net result of all of that is that he's 33rd in the times, not improving, and drags more gravel onto the road. Slowest now is number 19, which is the car driven by Leonardo Pulcini, and it's another of the, guess what, Lamborghinis, another of the Iron Linked cars. So it's a really tough session for Lamborghini.
But that 19 Lamborghini has actually done his personal best in sector 1.
Okay.
Nothing of great note in sector 2, so probably undone all the good yards, comes across the line and stays in 54th position. But certainly a bit of promise. A green in sector 1 will give the team hope. Likewise, Arthur Rouget in the 888 Audi has got a personal best in sector 1, so Arthur Rouget well out of, or I would expect to normally see him. Maybe a glimmer of hope once again for that Audi.
Isaac Tutumlo Lopez in the number 38 Ferrari, the car run by Rinaldi Racing, working his way through the traffic. We've got just over a quarter of an hour to go of this session. And for Lopez, he's busy in the traffic here.
Now who's in the 32?
Dries Van Thor. Hooking a wheel over the curb, did Dries. And he's got a lot of traffic to try and carve a way through as well. So it's busy out there at the moment.
Yeah, dropping a wheel off like that, I don't know whether the gully that was dug earlier in the session this morning, it was filled back in again, but I suspect that by dropping wheels off, it doesn't take long to empty it. That's how you cut it down, that's how you cut a tire.
Right, Lopez down towards turn 14. His car competitive today. And the Porsche in the background getting a little bit wide as well. Last round of pit stops to practice in the pit lane.
Go on, Maxi, you're not paid to do that.
So 87 is in. Showed as being Maxi Goetz behind the wheel, but we just see that it isn't. And a number of cars now heading for the pit lane to perhaps do their last driver change, or at least some practice pit stops.
This is the best of the BMWs so far. James Kell, Anders Buchart and Ben Green, saying it's James Kell behind the wheel right now. So it's not going to achieve the lap time set earlier by this car, but again, it's going through the motions, and it indicates, well, the Valkenhorst Motorsport BMW, this one certainly has got very good pace in this session. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Look at the black mark he laid just on the inside right wheel as it spun up as the tail snapped.
So James Kell, British GT racer, goes through, and the car, as John has been saying, 8th in that distinctive Valkenhorst colour scheme, Valkenhorst Motorsport. They've sort of dropped away a little bit from Fanatec GT, concentrating again on Nürburgring races, but they know how to deliver. And this is a team, don't forget, that years ago won the Spa 24 Hours. So Valkenhorst, an experienced and a successful endurance team.
Yep, I mean, I think you summed it all up in that last sentence, David. They're a very able and particularly in those 24-hour events, Nürburgring, Spa, and in endurance events. Oh, again, looks unstable on the entry into turn 14, and that's the. And there you saw. That's what we saw just a moment ago. It was the entry that really caused the initial problem, and this BMW is now moving around quite a lot. 13 minutes to go.
So there is the BM. Let's listen into the Valkenhorst conversation if we can.
Okay, it's unreadable, please repeat.
The rear feels a bit wobbly and a bit unbalanced compared to the rear right of the car. It feels different.
Copy that, understood. Pressures look okay. But let's focus left. We quickly check. Maybe we lost the balancing, or the wheel is not properly on. So let's box for safety. We will quickly check and then we decide.
So James Kell gets instruction to come into the pit lane, but talking about the car that just feels very badly balanced, or not balanced at all.
Yeah, different left to right, so that would maybe indicate there's an issue with one tyre on one side or the other, or maybe there's something mechanical that might be a bigger issue. You only got 13 minutes of the session to go, so car goes up at jacks. They're going to take all 4 wheels and tyres off, or just the 2 rears, and have a look and see. Look at the tyre. Obviously, tyre pressures are the first thing you want to check to see if there's any likelihood of a tyre losing pressure. So Dan Harper running in his BMW. The Rover Racing is slightly different. You know, the colour scheme of the junior drivers. Rover Racing BMW as opposed to the 98 with the traditional colours.
Yeah, this is the BMW bank car, and Dan Harper, who's got a British GT Championship to try to go to win in, what, 3 weeks' time or so, coming up towards the end of a lap.
Dan Harper presently 21st. Best lap this car's had is a 42.09. Not going to see that improved upon on this lap, not from those 2 first sector times. Stage 21st.
Ginetta Junior champion, Carrera Cup GB champion, and again not an improver on that lap. Marco Bortolotti 27th, he did improve on his previous lap. Down towards turn 1 goes Dan Harper. Right, we've been seeing Maxi Goetz joking around in the pit lane. It's time we heard from him. He's with Antonio right now.
Max, the car's looking great this weekend. Mercedes are looking strong across the board. Does this bode well for the race?
Yeah, actually our plan is follows. So in the end, we had a good session so far. Thomas did a great job. He put new tires on the car and he delivered. And I did a long run, so it felt really good. I mean, of course, you have in traffic some understeer, some oversteer, but that's the reason for free practice, to figuring out what's going on. But in the end, the pace looks good, and yeah, we're quite happy. So we improved a lot from FP1 to now. So we're happy with our steps we did. But a race distance, 3 hours, is a different story. So, but I think we should be prepared well for tomorrow.
Absolutely, it's a really long race. Like you said, it's going to be very busy on the grid with the highest number of cars we've seen since 2018. I mean, will you be helping out number 88?
Yeah, if it comes down to the fight in the end, and if we are in position, for sure. You always think about your teammates, the championship for the team. But first of all, we want to do our race, because so far we didn't have so much luck this season. We went always quick in qualifying, we had good starting places, but we ran out of luck the whole season. So we tried to protect ourselves a bit, having a good result in the end of the season. And I think the whole team deserved it. So I think 1-2, why not?
Absolutely, it'd be great, wouldn't it? Well, all the best for you and the rest of the team this weekend. Thank you.
Yeah, Maxi Goetz, who's been a loyal Mercedes servant, go back, what, a good 10 years or so, if not more, and it was him and Maxi Buch as the two coming men of GT racing for Mercedes, and Maxi came and went, came back and went again, but Maxi Goetz, he's remained loyal to Mercedes and the results have come.
And he's been around, as you mentioned, for a considerable period of time. Yeah. I mean, just listening to what he was saying in the interview with Antonio is that, I mean, if they can repeat tomorrow morning what they've achieved here this afternoon, get that car into the front row of the grid, that is invaluable in terms of what their prospects would be in terms of being either a victor or certainly being on the podium. Because if you follow back into, say, in the middle 20s in qualifying, there is virtually zero chance of you being on the winner's podium. You might win one of the categories, because there are 4 different categories throughout the event, but if overall victory is your aspiration, you need to be in the front 2 or 3 rows, and you need to execute each of your pit stops, driver changes, flawlessly.
Session then now with just under 9 minutes to go. Nikolai Sjægaard's McLaren hustles on up through turn 12. And this is where most people have been either cutting the corner on the inside and or going wide on the outside and losing a lap time. That green strip between 13 and 14. That's turn 14 itself. We had a Porsche in the gravel there at the end of yesterday. Today they were gone through without drama, and this session also drama-free. 6 minutes remain though.
So it's more or less a countdown for everybody until checkered flag comes out. There's nobody presently on a lap out of the 54 cars that's got a green sector time. So it's indicative of what teams are doing. Well, I say that. Ben Barker, the only driver, currently 28th in the Porsche, he has gone green in sector 1 on that. Is that car only its 7th lap of the day?
Is that right?
No, I beg your pardon. Its best lap was done on the 7th. So they've actually completed, let me look across, Ben Barker.
30 laps.
Okay,
yeah.
They've done a lot of running. So right. There we are, Ben, you can see it on screen, Ben Barker and Lucas Auer. So there is Lucas Auer in the Mercedes. That's not Ben Barker, is it? That's a Mercedes. That's Lucas Auer, sure.
Yeah, Ben Barker, that Porsche there.
That's the Porsche.
Yeah, and he's coming up through traffic, but he's down in that middle sector. He's lost a bit of time in the middle of the lap. Might bail, might stay out, but Ben, I know we keep touching on this as he backs off to let the traffic go, but he's another very quick Brit that doesn't get the credit he deserves. Australian Formula 3 champion, absolutely specialises in Porsches, but we have seen him in Lamborghinis, for example, in the past with Barwell. But again, give Ben Barker a Porsche and he delivers in it. Equally, he's an excellent Porsche driver coach as well, but partly because he does a lot of racing in Europe rather than in the UK, and partly because a lot of it is pro-am, the results are affected by the am, he gets overlooked. That's difficult because he's about 6 foot something, so he's a tall bloke, perfectly suited to GT racing, very accomplished Porsche racer. He's another guy that deserves more credit than he gets.
Well, I mean, just having a seat in a professional team in a professional race series is pretty good. If you look at Marco Bortolotti in the 63 Lamborghini. So up into turn 9, Merkel, what's he going to do in the exit? Is he going to run it to the very edge? Well, he left a bit of a margin. Everybody slowed down, the Ferrari in particular, so he got through that cleanly, no problem. So second sector time is just about a second down. So what he made up in sector 1 has been offset by almost 7/10 of a second in sector 2. So the 63 Lamborghini presently in 27th. Overall, unlikely to see any change at the conclusion of this lap.
So here is Bortolotti then using the curb on the inside of 13, and he's got the Iron Dames Lamborghini just up the road ahead in that very distinctive pink livery. 5 3/4 minutes of the session remain, and Bortolotti doesn't improve. He looked good in the first sector, but it all ebbed away in sectors 2 and 3.
Yes, and of course catching up to the sister team car, well, not the sister team car, but in effect the two Lamborghinis running together, and Mirko Bortolotti on a run trying to find a way around the Iron Dames car, which I'm not sure who's behind the wheel of that. It's Sarah Bovey right now, so it's further down the field than Mirko is in 27th position.
This is Mauro Engel in the car that Lukas Stolz put to the top of the times over an hour ago, and it stayed there. And
it looks like it's cruising.
Yeah, exactly.
It may well be cruising, but you know, again, you'd see the sector times, they are down, but in relative terms, the car is what I would describe as it's tracking very well. It may not have the overall grip, but the balance is good, and there's no unnecessary wasted energy that we've seen so far in any of those corners.
24, we had Alex Fontana doing great things earlier to go 6th. Ivan Jacoma has taken it over, and the car collection Porsche staying in the top 6, but at a different pace now with the AM as opposed to a pro behind the wheel, even though Ivan Jacoma is an experienced driver. He's not on the Alex Fontana pace. Down towards turn 14 he comes then. 4 minutes to change on the clock as he comes up towards the timing line now. Goes through.
Charles Vert was just behind him, and we look at the come to you Audi down the inside. Oh, it's Fred Vervisch. Well, there's a surprise. That past the 66.
Yeah, Vervisch at the moment 7th in the times as the drone tries to keep up with him, heading up through turns 11 and 12. Short run across the top of the circuit here, and then again fast right. And there you see on the inside where people are trying to cut.
Yeah, they're trying to take a lump of the inside of the corner, straighten it as much as possible to carry more speed, and then coming into 14 again, Vervisch runs out to the absolute limit of the edge of the racetrack, and he does it lap upon lap upon lap. So I wonder whether that's going to make any difference. Currently 7th overall, that last lap 143.5 against a 141.4, so 1.9 seconds slower than that last lap.
So there is Fred Vervisch, and we've got just over 3 more minutes of the session to go. The track actually is still quite busy. We've only got a handful of cars in the pit lane, so everybody trying to use as much of the last available track time before we get to tomorrow morning's qualifying session. I've been quite fascinated to sit into a Lamborghini debrief at the end of the night because they've had a really grotty day.
Might need earplugs.
Yes, quite. Imagine if it were a Gunter Steiner type debrief, but I think there'll be an awful lot of frustration and possibly confusion as to where the pace is. Louis Machiels, number 52 Ferrari. His son Jeff was doing good times earlier, and Louis Machiels has taken over the family car. But Andrea Bertolini is the 3rd driver in as well.
So it is very much a family weekend for the Machiels family with Jeff, his son, who, as you pointed out, David, I thought did an excellent job earlier in the day. Louis, the dad, will drive appropriately, and Andrea Bertolini, who has got Ferrari written through him like a piece of Bognor Regis rock.
So that car currently is, what, 24th fastest, and Louis Machiels has been a stalwart SRO GT racer for many, many seasons now. Regular Pro-Am champion in the Endurance Cup. There, number 3 Mercedes, Lucas Auer at the wheel of it. We saw that car heading for the pit lane a little bit earlier, and 10th quickest he is now, Lucas Auer at the wheel.
Yeah, again, every sector time down. I'm just again looking at timing and scoring. The only car I've seen has gone green is the 31 BMW Jesse Krohn. As Tim Whale now behind the wheel actually of that car. So that's got a green sector in sector 1, but still 38th quickest. The 79 Mercedes has jumped up all the way to 45th, which probably for them is a great improvement, but overall not going to be in contention for pole position. Certainly not on the performance we've seen in this session.
So there over the timing line is Lucas Auer. And Laurin Heinrich up to 3rd in the times now in the Porsche. So this is the Tronic car, which has quietly got on with the job. It was not that inspiring in free practice this morning, but over the course of the day, it's got much, much nearer to the Mercedes pace. Not really fighting for the championship, but it could be a potential race winner tomorrow. And of course, this is a team that's gone well in the DTM this year. Laurin Heinrich joined by Dennis Olsen and Thomas Preining, so it's a factory squad.
Yes, and to some degree, the 96 Porsche has been flying under the radar pretty much all day, both this morning and now this afternoon, but all of a sudden there we are. That car first in the Porsche's 3rd quickest overall, 96 thousandths of a second, off that provisional fastest lap set by Maro Engel, and the checkered flag is out.
Yeah, I mean, there's an example of a team, if you like, building its day. Didn't come out of the blocks as quickly as others, but they've worked on the balance, worked on the setup, worked on the pace, and by the end of the day, they're happy.
Very clever management. It's important to achieve your best times when the flag's coming out, not to do it when the lights begin the session.
Yeah.
So if you go quickest at the end of the first lap, you're there to be challenged, but this car has crept up and, to say, under the radar, has just gone about its business and ends up the fastest Porsche and third quickest overall. And that's, people go, oh, where did that time come from? Well, the team have done a good job.
Absolutely. So the Rutronic Racing entered car, up to third in the times. As John rightly says, the checkered flag is out. So Maro Engel has pitted anyway, but he was fastest, or that car was fastest in the so-called Pro Cup. Pro-Am, Alex Fontana did the time in gold. It was Ben Green, and in silver, the Petrazzi Arca Deliguanti Audi was the fastest. Fabrizio Crestani, 29th. He was impressive in the esports race last night, only having dominated the first half of the race to be given a stop-go penalty for speeding in the pit lane of 30 seconds, and that rather undid it all. But he's got good pace as Crestani, and he has taken the flag. The McLaren has taken the flag, but he's on a much faster in-lap.
I mean, all I can imagine is that they want information. So a lot of drivers, when they take the checkered flag, they back off and catch a lungful of air. So maybe the McLaren wants information from the tyres in particular.
Maybe. So, good session for Mercedes. Maro Engel didn't do the time, but he's part of that crew in the fastest car, and we can hear from Maro with Antonio Rankin in the pit lane now.
Maro, fastest car on the grid at the moment. That really seems to be suiting the conditions. Do you think you'll be able to match that pace in quali?
Luke obviously put in a good lap there. We saved a set of new tyres for this session. I think, you know, some others put 2 sets this morning because realistically the conditions this morning will be more similar to what we'll have in qualifying, and on this track it's always hard to overtake, so qualifying will be a key. You know, we'll take it. The car's handling well, but I don't think we've seen the true picture yet.
Okay, well, obviously the conditions we've got right now are more mirroring that of in the race itself. So do you think race pace you'll be all sorted?
Yeah, it doesn't look too bad in race pace, which is usually the strength of ours. But you know, if you're not in clean air, then you can't really use that. So it's let's see. You know, we need to have a good qualifying tomorrow morning and be up near the sharp end, and then we'll see.
Absolutely, it's a busy grid, looking out for all of the other cars. But yeah, best of luck. Thank you.
Thumbs up from Maro Engel, who's not lost his Australian twang after his time in V8 Supercars, even though that was quite a few years ago now. So treble 7 it was that was the fast S, courtesy really of Luca Stolz. Another perhaps underrated driver. Luca doesn't get some of the credit he deserves, but he's another very, very fast part of that Mercedes driver roster. And Maro Engel and Fabian Schiller, the other two drivers. 29 thousandths was the margin. The magic second covers the first 19 on the grid, the whole grid, covered by just 2.4 seconds after those 90 minutes of pre-qualifying. This is the order then. It was Luca Stolz ahead of Thomas Drouet. Third fastest was Laurin Heinrich doing the time at the end, ahead of Jules Gounon, and fifth was David Rigon. Sixth quickest, Alex Fontana, ahead of Fred Verviche, and then Ben Green. Next was Lorenzo Petrazzi, top 10 being rounded out by Lucas Auer. Max Hofer was 11th ahead of Alessio Rovera. Then it was Dries Van Thorp from Sander Jonge, and the Baptistas, although they're up before the stewards, were 15th. 16th, Santalok's Audi, and looking at one or two others that you might have expected to be higher up. 19th only, the car fighting for overall championship honours. Philipp Eng, Marco Wittmann, Nick Yoller's BMW, and the car fighting for sprint honours is only 20th as well. Ricardo Fellow, Matteo Drudi and Dennis Marshall. So two of which you can expect more tomorrow when qualifying gets underway. The same true of Mirko Bortolotti, Andrea Caldarelli and Jordan Pepper's Lamborghini, only 27th at the end of the session. And further down, others that you might have anticipated a little bit more from, maybe the Sky Tempesta McLaren could have been further up the order, and certainly 47th is not where you anticipate to find Valentino Rossi, Augusto Farfus, nor Maxime Martin. That BMW one to watch tomorrow. The same true of Lamborghini number 6, 50th, the Pereira, Mitchell and Bappelli. So, session got underway in the sunshine for 90 minutes of running, which in the end went without a car in the gravel, without a stoppage, without any real interruptions. A couple of spins, but it was all pretty calm by the standards of this morning. Lorenzo Petrazzi quick early on, chased then by number 51 Ferrari, the AF Corsa Francorchamps Motors entry of Rivera, Schwartzman and Nielsen. Audi number 21 was doing good times early in the session with Max Hofer behind the wheel of it. Fred Dervish in Audi number 11 towards the end, despite hooking a wheel over the curb and digging yet more of that trench away. Alex Fontana put number 24 Porsche up to 6th. 5th was Antonio Fuoco for AF Corsa by the end of the session. 4th fastest, the car that leads the championship outright, Jules Cournons doing the time, joined by Raffaele Marcello and of course Timo Bondolstowski. 3rd quickest, the Brutronic Porsche of Laurin Heinrich. He did the time at the very end, with the 2nd fastest car being Tom Drouet, and fastest, treble 7, Lukas Stolz doing the time for the Almanar racing team. Qualifying tomorrow from 9:45. Points for pole each of the classes bar overall. Join us for the drama tomorrow. Bye for now.